And as cases continue to rise across the country, the debate over how to open up schools, it is certainly heating up. We're more than 4 months into this pandemic, and there's still no bold national plan to safely return kids to the classroom, leaving parents, children, and teachers with questions as well as fears. ABC's Karen Travers has this report.
This is the time of year when Americans start thinking about back to school, new supplies, new clothes. But with the number of cases of coronavirus in the U.S. exploding, parents and teachers are increasingly worried about how to reopen schools safely.
And I'm not sure that I want my children to be the guinea pigs for that.
I would prefer not to be the guinea pig. It's really about my health. I mean, I consider myself pretty healthy, but this doesn't discriminate.
I want to be back in the classroom. I want the students 100%. And I want the students to wear masks, and I want to wear masks, and I want to be as safe as we can within the classroom setting.
The coronavirus pandemic is forcing state and local officials to consider drastic plans for the upcoming school year. Mandatory mask wearing, limited extracurricular activities, no chorus or sports, reducing class size to allow social distancing, and using a hybrid model, dividing classes, groups of students rotating between in-school learning and at-home distance learning. But that may not work everywhere. School districts in Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, and Houston announcing they will all begin the school year online.
We had a feeling that it was coming, but and no one's super pleased about it, but I do think it's the right thing to do. The numbers are just not on our side right now.
The consensus among experts is it's better to get kids back at school if it's safe. The American Academy of Pediatrics says kids should be physically in class, pointing to the major health, social, and educational benefits. But 4 months into the coronavirus pandemic, it's not clear what could happen when kids return.
Biggest concern about going back to school and sending them back to school for our family is health. It's cut and dry for us. Our youngest with special needs, Nate, is a high risk.
Doctors and public health officials are very worried about how kids can transmit the coronavirus.
Maybe they have less severe outcomes, but when it comes to transmission, kids are important vectors because they'll infect their parents or in turn infect grandparents.
Peg Alessi from Northern Virginia has been a teacher for 25 years. She's grappling with what is the right approach for her and her students.
I think best would be starting virtually.
But Alessi says she'll likely start the school year with the hybrid model, 12 students in her 4th grade classroom.
It saddens me and angers me at the same time because I've never had to be put in that situation where my family comes second, because it's my family coming second.
President Trump insists schools should fully reopen in the fall, and he accuses Democrats of playing politics when they say it's unsafe to send kids back while the virus is spreading.
Yeah, the president has said unmistakably that he wants schools to open, and I was just in the Oval talking to him about that. And when he says open, he means open and full, kids being able to attend each and every day at their school. The science should not stand in the way of this. The science is on our side here.
But many parents say they feel that in the rush to reopen, officials are not focusing on their needs and concerns.
There's a disconnect between those in charge making the decisions and then, those of us with kids, who are living in the real world.
And so public officials and education leaders are facing a major challenge: how to reach that sweet spot, reopen schools, and keep students and staff safe.
Our teachers certainly will be at risk.
In Arizona last month, Kimberly Bird was teaching online summer school in the same classroom as 2 other teachers. All 3 got COVID-19. Bird died.
Opening up is not feasible. It's not safe for our children, it's not safe for our staff members, and it's not safe for the people in our community.
Another big issue, one that educators told us is not getting enough attention: what happens if a teacher or student tests positive?
What are we at, 60, 70?
60.
Colby is a teacher in the Philadelphia suburbs. His wife, a friend of mine for nearly 30 years, is also a teacher. They have 3 young children.
And we're going to be sending my son into a classroom of 20 kids, my daughter into a classroom of 20 kids. My wife's going to teach 20 kids, and I'm going to have 100 cycling through my classroom. So, we're going to have a high amount of exposure.
Jeff says he really wants to get back into the classroom. He's hearing a lot about reopening, but not the protocol if there's a COVID case in his wife's, or his kids' classrooms.
And if my son's being quarantined Are they going to then make my daughter quarantine, or my wife and I going to have to be out of school for 2 weeks?
Alessi says parents need to be prepared for a new normal, more independent work in the classroom, less interaction with teachers and peers.
A lot of people are saying the social emotional piece is why we're sending our students to school, but school isn't going to look or sound or feel anything of what it was pre-COVID.
Public health experts say there is no one-size-fits-all solution for the entire country.
Opening schools up in some of the hot spots right now would be virtually impossible because adding the mixing of kids would just flare up the epidemic.
And that could lead to another round of closures, something many parents say could really harm their children after so much disruption and upheaval already this year. Nancy Rocha, a parent in Texas, says that is her biggest worry, schools reopening and then quickly closing.
So I have to make sure that my son has consistency and stability when it comes to going back to school, because there are struggles that he has in academics.
President Trump has threatened to pull federal funding from schools that don't open, a move that could require congressional approval. But decisions about if and how to reopen schools are really hyper-local. And even within states, districts could take very different approaches. That has teachers and parents raising alarms about disparities in education and support structures.
My biggest concern is that if we can't figure out these systems for what we need to do to be able to address this COVID crisis in education, that we're just going to settle for it not working great, settle for only some students getting an education.
I also think there should be more counselors and people who are sort of just checking in, maybe social workers who can check in with families, just so we know for sure that some of these kids are, not in abusive situations and are able to kind of get out if they need to or get moved if they need to into another environment.
With many school districts set to open in August, the clock is ticking for a creative, safe solution.
Right now, I definitely don't feel comfortable with them going back full time, but I do know that that is going to have a lasting effect on them.
Parents say they need to prepare their children for this unusual semester, and that may mean some disappointed kids.
My daughter starts kindergarten. She's been wearing her book bag since it arrived last week.
Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
Lots of kids certainly excited about the prospect of going back to school. Our thanks to Karen for that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.